okay? And I just told you what those two things are. To become one, to enjoy each other, we're going to talk about that next week, and to make babies. Those are the two things that God gave us sex for. It's a God-given thing. But we've taken it to a whole extreme where we've brought sexual immorality into it. Sexual immorality is the second most talked about thing in the entire Bible. The first most talked about thing in the Bible is money. The second most talked about thing in the Bible is sexual immorality and God's hate. And hate is not a strong enough word for sexual immorality. So we turn to 1 Corinthians 6:18, and Paul says this, flee from sexual immorality. For every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexual immoral person sins against his own body. 1 Thessalonians 4:3 says, for this is the will of God. You don't have to buy those books. Okay, you don't have to buy the books to find God's will for your life. I'm going to tell you what it is right now. For this is the will of God, your sanctification. What does that mean? It means you becoming like Jesus. That's sanctification. That's the process that we go through when you're saved, you're justified, then you work through the process of sanctification. We're all in that process until Jesus comes back again, where you're becoming more and more and more and more like Jesus. If you're becoming less and less and less, you're not being very sanctified. So God's will for you is for you to become like Jesus. That's the will of God. He doesn't will you to be a plumber. Okay? He doesn't. But then it's funny because it says, for this is the will of God, your sanctification, ... that you abstain from sexual immorality. 1 Corinthians 7:1-2. Now concerning the matters about which you wrote, the Corinthian church had written, they had all kinds of issues. Corinthian church was like craziness. Okay, there was sexual immorality going on like crazy. There was a dude that was actually married to like his mom or something like that. Okay, and Paul actually tells them, kick him out. He says, get him out of there. He doesn't belong in the church at all. Kick him out. Now, we wouldn't be comfortable with that in our culture, right? We don't kick somebody out of church. My goodness, church is for everybody, right? Well, Paul says, kick this dude out because he's married to his mama, and that's not cool. It was something like, I think it's his mom. He says, now concerning about these matters, it is good, listen to me very carefully, it is good for a man not to have sexual relations with a woman. But, now it isn't like, yeah, there's a but, that means there's like a loophole. No. But, because of the temptation to sexual immorality, that temptation of you wanting to have sex, each man should have his own wife and each woman his own husband. In other words, because you are tempted by sex, you need to get married. Paul never got married, and he said that he never was going to get married because he said that he was strong enough to deal with his sexual temptations. And he says that if you're not strong enough to deal with your sexual temptations, meaning that you don't have to look at porn, you don't have to, you know what I'm saying, what happens when you're looking at porn, right? And stuff like that. If you don't have to do any of that, and you don't have to be with a woman or anything like that, that's awesome. You have a gift from God. That's what Paul says. But the rest of us who are sexually immoral by nature, because every dude thinks about it all the time, trust me, they do. There's like a 3-minute period in life where guys don't think about it, and that's 3 minutes after. After that, they're back thinking about it again. Okay, I'm serious. It sounds really harsh, but it's very, very true. Honestly, we're sexual beings. We think about it all the time, especially guys. Girls, you do too, but more so guys, because guys are very visual. Like, I mean, you walk by and we're like, ugh. You know, like that's just the way guys are. That's why guys like porn so much, guys. And I have a resource for all of you to pick up next week called Porn Again Christian. It's a great resource written by Mark Driscoll that I want all of you guys to read. It's just written specifically for guys, and it deals with all of our pornography issues that you all have. Do you know 50% of pastors have porn problems? I'm not that 50%. I'm married. I don't have sexual immorality issues because I have a wife that's hot and beautiful. And I'm going to talk about that next week. So each man should have a wife. Not multiple wives, you can't handle that, just one wife. And the reason for that is, one of the many reasons for that, is that deals with your sexual immorality. So if you're having problems with the fact that you want to sleep with your boyfriend or sleep with your girlfriend, the answer would be, especially at your age, get married. That's simple. But our culture says, no. Wait till you're like 30 or 40 to get married, because you got to have the right amount of money. You got to have everything set in life, a dog and a house and all kinds of stuff before you can get married. That's bullcrap. Okay, just simply get married. If you're having problems with sexual immorality, just go get married. Okay, it goes against our culture, but that's the biblical way to be able to have sex. If you're having sex out of wedlock, you are committing sexual immorality, and God hates it. It's really that simple. Let's go further. Paul says this, 1 Corinthians 6:12. I love this. All things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be enslaved by anything. You see, here's one of the keys to having a biblical relationship. You cannot be enslaved by anything other than God. So if porn is an issue with you, you are enslaved by porn, you're sinning, and you're putting something in the way of your relationship with God. Not only are you putting something in the way of your relationship with God, you're putting something in the way of your relationship with your spouse, especially if you're married, or with your girlfriend, because girls don't understand that. They view it that you are looking at someone else because they're not adequate in your eyes. That's the way they view it, whether we like it or not. Girls, you do have to understand that guys are very visual, and that they just have issues with this. So bear with them, encourage them, but they do have issues with it, and it's not always because they don't find you attractive. I know some guys that struggle with porn that are crazy attracted to their girlfriend or their wife or whatever it is. It's just that there's that temptation there. It's exactly like a drug. Did you know that at the point of climax in sex, that the endorphins that are released are more addictive than heroin or cocaine? So sex is addictive. It's addicting. And I'll talk about this a little bit more next week, but guys, I don't know how else to phrase this, but when you masturbate, you're not, like, guys will say, well, I do that because I relieve myself so that I don't commit sexual immorality. But the reality is that when you masturbate and the endorphins that are released become addictive, and you then you don't really relieve yourself, you actually create yourself to need to do it more. It's scientific, because the way that your body functions, it needs to produce more semen and stuff like that, and so then your body quickens that, and then you need release more often. So you're not solving the problem, you're actually creating it to be worse. Look that up online sometime. It's really cool. Really cool. How many people are really uncomfortable already? Yeah. So here's really, I want to establish this right off the bat. God says you cannot have sex with your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Sex is for marriage. Okay? And so there's all kinds of things that surround that. I mean, just look at it in the cultural sense. How many of you here that aren't married are ready to have kids? Are you ready for that? Can you support yourself? How many people still live at home? How mom and dad going to feel about you bringing home a baby? Right? They're going to tell you to go live on your own and support yourself and so on and so forth. It's a complete shift in life. Trust me, I know. I got 3. I'm willing to give away the 4-year-old right now because he's acting 4. He's just being a kid. I love him, but he's just being a kid, right? He's being 4, and wow. The other day, he ripped our towel rack off of the wall and left a big hole in the bathroom wall because he was having a fit, right? So, I mean, he's wrecking stuff, things like that. Are you ready for that? I say to teenagers, if you're going to have sex with with somebody and she gets pregnant, don't come into my office and be all whiny about it, because I'm going to look at you and say, you be a man, and you step up and you take care of it. You felt you were old enough to have sex. You're now old enough to be a dad.